Good afternoon, everyone. This is John. Welcome to Dedication to Delegation, another in the series of Sun is Life webinars. We're really happy to have you all. We have a very nice sized crowd today. And I don't know what the weather is like wherever you folks are. It's pretty nice here, a little muggy, but this is beautiful, gorgeous northern Kentucky. So we're going to have, I think, a real good webinar today, and I think we'll just go right into some details here. And this is something I say to people all the time, that profitable salons are masters at selling and proactive at the division of staff labor. And this, by the way, is an important theme today, the division of staff labor, because I think what I find in a lot of salons is there's really very small expectations for selling people. That's really what we want them to do, is we want them to sell, but very small expectations for other things. And I think we find that owners and managers are doing too many things, and that's the importance, of course, of delegation. So, but before we get going, we welcome all attendees, and of course, you know our housekeeping notes. The transmission is one way. Ask questions via the comment box. And matter of fact, when we get down into it, I'm going to ask Tony to remind me, because there's a question that we need to put in there, but we'll get to that in just a second. The webinar will last about 60 minutes. There's a brief Q&A at the end, and if you need to reconnect, just dial the webinar invite number. And the recording will be available probably on Monday. I'm going to ask you to put in the chat box today, I'd like your opinion. Tony and I and David have been back and forth on this, and we're curious what you folks would feel. We have a lot of people that sign up for these webinars, and the percentage of people that show up, of course, is smaller, and we're wondering if it would make it a bigger number of show-ups if, in fact, we did not allow the replay on this, the recording on this, to be replayed until, say, 30 days later. Now, when I did the webinars a couple of years ago, we were working with JK America and Ergoline. It was that you couldn't hear the rebroadcast for another 30 days, and what it did do is it pushed more people to actually come to hear the webinar live at that time. Now, we do get a lot of visits from your folks to my website and to Tony's Son is Life website, but if you get a chance and you want to put a chat in the chat box about how you would feel if the webinar was not available for replay for, say, another 30 days, do you think that that would make more people actually come to the webinar on the webinar date? So just want to get your opinion on that if you feel like chatting on that. And as we move on here, again, this whole series is brought to you by IST Magazine and the Sun is Life program, which is just absolutely exploding, and it's going to be just fantastic for everybody with its educational and certification components. And as you know, it is the John and Tony Show. We've been working on this show now for a long time. I guess Tony and I think we'll just keep doing it until we get it right. A few mess-ups here and there, but I guess things are moving in the right direction. But to move things in the right direction as far as this industry goes, we have one little political thing we do have to discuss with you that has just recently come up. And you're probably aware that I think it was, by the way, Tony, I forgot to welcome you. Tony, are you there, sir?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me, John.
Okay, well, thanks for being on. And Tony, thanks for making me aware of this, or reminding me. I was aware of it, but reminding me. So we put a slide on here, folks, for you that, you know, we put up with an awful lot of slings and arrows from outsiders on our business, and here's the Centers for Disease Control is looking for comment to come up with some kind of a summary on what UV tanning can and should do. And I think, Tony, the information is up there where they can submit their comments. Isn't that the one right in the middle, federal e-rulemaking portal?
Yeah, follow the instructions, and then there's I don't think the email address is up there, but I can get that out there for you guys later on. The deal is here, folks, is this. It's really simple. We have to begin protecting our industry. You know, we've made some mistakes in the past. The industry has as a whole. But past that, now we've got all these regulatory agencies that keep coming down on us. We need to start standing up for ourselves, and we need every single one of you that are listening out there to write before September 4th to the Centers of Disease Control and follow along with the guidelines that they have for submittals, and make sure that you make your voice heard. If it's just one or two of us, they're going to have their way with us. We need everybody in our industry, as a matter of protecting our livelihood, to step up to the plate and write this letter.
Yeah, this is, I guess this is getting kind of serious stuff because, you know, the things, Tony, like the tanning mom it's an irritant and it's, you know, real pain in the neck. But this is serious stuff here. I mean, this we really have to address this, and we've got to get some comments in there because if they don't hear enough from us, you know, the way that they're going to go, and boy, we just don't need that. So, any other thoughts on this, Tony?
Yeah, we need them to be clear and concise in the message that they relay, and you know, I think that the effort here needs to be focused on, you know, not so much as let's just ban tanning. Let's look at what's our happy medium out there. What's going to make everybody happy? And we know that if you expose people to sunburns too often, that's going to be a problem for them down the road. But you know what? The sun is our life, and in the absence of the sun, we wouldn't even have life. So that being said, there's two different spectrums that we're looking at. We got to find that middle ground, and if the regulatory agencies continue on this path, folks, I got to tell you, we're not going to be in business. So we got to step up to the plate.
Yeah, we really do, and this is, in my 23 years, Tony, this is, I think, the most serious that I've seen, the most serious threat, and I think we have to react to it because this is not good. So, but okay, so go ahead.
Hey, John, one last thing. If
yeah.
you guys, those of you that can write a letter, will you at least let us know in the chat box that you can write a letter so we can get an idea of how many letters are going to come out of this webinar? That would be great for us.
Yeah, let me just, in the chat box here, Pete asked, he said, can you provide something like a sample letter that we can modify much the way the other organizations recently suggest a sample? That's a good idea. Can we do that, Tony, and maybe put that on the Sun is Life site and people can go to it and get that sample letter?
Absolutely, and with that,
that's a great idea, Pete. Thank you.
There are several sample letters out there right now that have been floating around. It doesn't really matter. We need to start sending them. They have to be there by the 4th. We'll put my sample out. I've written one myself. We'll put that sample out onto the website, and hopefully people can visit sunislife.com and pull it down and modify it for themselves.
Yep. That's good. Great. Okay. Well, moving along here. I mean, that is. I don't want to rush that message, but that is very, very important. But let's get into the rest of this today while you folks had showed up here. And of course, David, you're there. Say hello, David.
Hello, David.
Very good, very good. See, we actually get him to talk. That's good. Okay, so Sun is Life training modules, you know all about this. I mean, this is great stuff. We're always looking for likes, so if you can go to the Facebook and give us a few likes in there. Also, hey, I wouldn't mind a few likes. I finally got dragged into having a Facebook for my consulting practice. Of course, I'm old and senile, and David finally slapped me about the head and face enough, so I'm looking for likes there myself, and if you go to johnrfr.com Facebook, you'll be able to do that if in fact you like it. So, but let's get to the subject matter and delegation defined. The sharing or transfer of authority and the associated responsibility, and I'm going to give you a couple different definitions here. Associated responsibility from an employer or superior who has the right to delegate to an employee or subordinate. Notice both words, authority and responsibility, are used in the definition. Delegation works when you give that employee the responsibility for a task, but you also give them the authority. And one of the things that we see, which is most dramatic on that, is at the counter when they're selling. Now, if you take your selling consultants and you tie them up that they can't give out a free tan or a free upgrade, and you want them to sell from, say, a 10-session package up to a 30-day unlimited, or you want to take somebody up to an EFT or an EFT level 1 to a 2 to a 3, whatever, you do have to have a comfort level with your employees. You do have to be able to delegate to them not only the responsibility of selling packages, but you've got to give them the authority if they feel they need it for closure. Now, if you've got a person that you feel, if you have someone that you feel you can't give that authority to, then they obviously need more training and more monitoring as far as what they're doing, or maybe they're the wrong person for the job. Because you get the right salesperson, you can give them the keys and just let them keep selling and put in a few things here and there that's a closer. Sometimes they come up with some very creative ways to do that. Now, by the way, next week, I want to remind everybody of this. 2 weeks from today, our webinar, and then I'm going to hit it here in a few minutes too, is for it says for managers only. Now, obviously, it is for owners as well, but our point of view is going to be the life of the salon manager, and that's that's the direction that we're going in that. So I don't want you to miss that one. I think that's going to be a great webinar, and on that webinar, I'm going to have two, not one, but I'm going to have two killer salon managers. No, they're not serial killers, but these are two of the best managers that I've ever worked with in the tanning industry, and they're going to be on an open forum with me, and it's going to be a good one. I'm really convinced of that. So, authority and responsibility, or it could be defined as giving someone the responsibility of a task to complete, and the training, freedom, and authority to complete it. Freedom, by the way, is very important. You want people to feel that they can do what they have to do and not be concerned about failure. Failure can scare a lot of people off from initiative. Okay, so just as a quick recap, managers only coming up in 2 weeks. And then after that, we've got the burning issues of employment law. That's going to be a really good one. Just had a couple employment law situations come up with a couple of salons this week. And then, of course, we've got radio coming up on the 3rd, special edition. And then we have coming up here, the Wall of Fame. That's going to be a really good one. And my compatriot here, Mr. Brown, Tony, is going to be probably the key presenter on that one. We're going to be talking about education and certification, and it's really going to be a good one. And then we've got coming up on the 31st, planning the financial future of the 2014 peak season, although I think we were still talking about, Tony, weren't we talking about moving that to the day before or the day after? I can't remember now. It might have been the day before, Wednesday the 30th, because the 31st is a
we were
going to
do it. I think we were going to do it the Monday before, John.
The Monday before? Oh, my.
Yeah, because people are getting busy with the spray tans on the 30th and 31st.
Okay, so that would be the 28th. If I got that right?
Yeah.
I think so. Okay. You know what? We did talk about that last time, and Mr. Senility here didn't write it down. So I've got it now, and I'll change that in the scheduled. And then we've got prepping the team for the 2014 season. We're going to get back to staffing there. Now on December the 5th, we've got one coming up. I don't think Tony and I want to tell you who, but we're going to have a key person, a key executive from the industry that is fantastic at telling us how to sell, and particularly lotions and products, and he's going to be one of our speakers on that one. And then we're going to try to pull off one late in the year. Maybe we'll just see how you people react to it. Maybe December the 19th is too crazy, and you may not be able to attend. And if that's the case, that's fine. We may just put that one off until the first week of January. Okay, so let's get going here. Webinar polls. Let's find out who we've got out there. David, if you would ask who our owners and managers and that sort of thing is, so we can get those polls underway.
My pleasure. Folks, you see on the screen right now, are you a manager or an owner? And then go to click on the screen so we can get to know you folks better. And let's see, we have 70% of the vote in. And let's give everyone just a few more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Closing out with 74% of the vote. We have today 54% managers, 46% owners.
Okay. Let's find out what we've got in terms of salon size.
All right, folks. Number of salons in your tanning company: 1, 2 to 3, 4 to 6, or more than 6. Go ahead and click on the screen. 74% of the vote. Fantastic. We'll close it down. 3, 2, 1. 79%. Great. And share our results here today. So just over half of all the attendees, 51%, have one salon. 32% have 2 to 3. 8% have 4 to 6, and also 8%, again, more than 6 salons in their tanning company.
And I'd like to say, too, by the way, if you are a single salon owner and you would like to be included in a new little organization that we're putting together, the Single Salon Owners Roundtable, if you'd like to be included in that, please let me know. Either send me an information in the chat box or send me an email. What it is, it's designed to try to help that single salon owner that's in major metro market, or sometimes even in a secondary market that's putting up with a lot of competition. And so far, the roundtable that we've got some really good retailers in there. Okay, and I think we have a third poll, David.
Yes, third poll. Sorry, I wasn't sure we are going to do it right away. Third poll is, how satisfied are you with your current salon staff? Very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, so-so, not satisfied, and very unhappy with them. So this will be an interesting poll to see.
I'm really interested to see this one myself.
So we have 74% of the vote in, and we'll close it down in 3, 2, 1. 75% of the vote, and by far the majority is somewhat satisfied at 56%. We have very satisfied. 22% of our attendees say that.
Good.
17% say so-so. 6% say not satisfied. And then luckily, thankfully, 0 said very unhappy.
Well, good. We don't have to worry about any felonies after this webinar. That's good. Okay. All right. Well, good. Thank you for your honest information. Appreciate that. Okay. So here's the signs of the need to get better at delegation. Some things to think about. Are you missing these delegation opportunities? Answer these questions. Do you seem to be working overtime more often than not? Do you take paper homework home with you after a full day or week? Are unfinished salon tasks piling up? I see them occasionally when I tour. Are daily operations so time-consuming that you have little time left for the planning process? And this is something, folks, I see an awful lot of. I see with owners and managers that there seems like there's so many tasks on their plate that they can't sit back and do some of the strategic planning, whether it's marketing or it's staffing, coming up here for the new year. And so that's possibly an indication that delegation efforts need to be stepped up. Planning process and other important matters. Do you try to maintain control of all details so salon tasks are done correctly? I must tell you that in this business, probably more so than in the retail music industry that I was in years ago, and then the retail video movie rental business, this business, more than those others, seems like there is such a control factor that we have more of our entrepreneurs that really want to control every aspect of their business. That could be somewhat to do with the fact that maybe staffs aren't up to accomplishing or being as productive as they should, and that goes back to delegation. Are you bothered in your off-work hours by constant, unexpected emergency phone calls? I can't tell you the number of clients we deal with that will tell me that I feel like I'm on call 24 hours a day. Okay, so some other things to ask. Do you lack confidence in your salon employees' abilities to handle more responsibility? Yeah, there's some of that. I hear that during a usual week when I'm talking to clients. Do your employees come to you for every decision, including the most insignificant ones? That's the kind of stuff that drives you crazy. You kind of wonder, why do you have to come to me with this? This is something that you should be able to figure out on your own. Well, maybe the delegation cycle isn't there. Do you feel that you have to hide in your salon office to get things done? Well, I know that feeling. Sometimes that's what I have to do too. When I work on these PowerPoints, sometimes I leave my office and I go to a public library near my home just to get away from the office phone because it just seems like it's just too crazy. Have salon employees stopped suggesting their ideas to you? That is a bad sign when they stop suggesting ideas. Does it seem your salon operations are never as productive or efficient when you're away? Have you ever, isn't it something, you go on vacation, you take a few days off, and you look at the numbers or you hear about the issues, and you think, gee, why doesn't it run the same like when I'm there? And, of course, the reason for that is maybe some effective delegation. Do you feel that you're giving up control as a manager or owner if you ask for your employees' assistance or suggestions? And that, by the way, is another sickness of non-developed delegation, is feeling that you're giving up control by getting people involved in running the business. And really, I'm going to talk a lot about that as we go on later with this webinar, because that's a key thing that you have to get over. Okay. In this webinar, I'm talking about mastering the motivation and division of salon labor, because there isn't, I think in a lot of cases, a good division of salon labor. Why is successful delegation so incredibly important? Why do managers and owners not delegate more? What duties and tasks should be delegated? Which should not be delegated? Successful delegation is so incredibly important. Well, an owner or manager needs to get positive production out of all employees. So many times when I talk with a manager, and the manager will brag about her own personal sales numbers, and that's fantastic. But really, the expectation she should be held to by an owner is getting the production out of all employees, and not, of course, just herself. You have to consider the expense of your workforce if they're not productive, because think of this: a single salon with 6 employees and a total annual payroll between $65,000 and $70,000. Compare that with the cost of a new piece of tanning equipment. Now, if you had an issue with a piece of tanning equipment, you certainly wouldn't sit around and not do something about it. And I'm not just talking about replacing an acrylic. If you had some real serious issues with it, you'd have that thing worked on right now. And employees are a very big expense for a salon, and that's what managers need to know too, is that owners are looking at that expense, and they're certainly not looking at it any less than they would look at the price of equipment. So it's important to get them productive, because they're driven by successful completion of important tasks and duties that look forward to the job. They feel good about their contribution and have less turnover. When we get employees more productive, we have less turnover. That is just the way that it is. And when they're more productive and they feel better about their jobs, there's less goofing off, there's less time spent on Facebook talking to their boyfriends, less time doing things that maybe are dishonest, because that kind of thing happens every once in a while. So we say engaged and charged up employees are those that are engaged and charged up with your customers. Now, owners and managers tend to do too many tasks that can be delegated, and they can rob the salon of their valuable time for new business approaches. Here's the thing I find, and this is probably one of the biggest areas where we suffer out there in salon land, is usually the store owner, salon owner, knows a lot of people in the community, may have more of an awareness of the other services that are around him, and can put together cross-marketing or cross-merchandising or cross-promoting concepts with other people, such as fitness centers that don't have tanning beds in them. A lot of this stuff can be done, and you can piggyback off of their email, and they can piggyback off of your email. But a lot of times, a lot of these owners, and there's I think at least a half a dozen of you on here right now that are clients of mine, that have this same problem, because they don't have enough productivity out of their staff. There's not enough that's delegated to them. So they find that they're doing a lot of tasks, the owners are doing a lot of tasks that they probably shouldn't be doing. Now, next week, by the way, when we're talking about for managers only, we're going to have Savannah on here, who is a manager with a store down in Nashville, and a lady from California, April, who is also a fantastic manager. And when you talk to these ladies, or when you hear them talk about how they run things, you can see how their owners are free to do things over and above just running the day-to-day operations, and not having to worry about all the detailed issues of employees this and employees that. And they're worth their weight in gold, and the sales figures reflect that. Okay, why do most managers or owners not delegate more often? Well, delegation is not a natural talent. It really isn't. And the problem is, it's because, well, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of reasons why we don't do it. Some feel that they just don't have the time. And I always get a kind of a joke out of this, because when I ask somebody why they don't delegate more, they'll just say, I don't have the time to delegate, which is kind of a self-serving hamster wheel, because if you don't take the time to delegate, you're certainly not going to have the time to delegate, because you're going to have everything sitting on your desk. You'll get they'll fear that mistakes are being made. This is what I hear often too, is that they hate to delegate particular tasks because they think that whoever works for them is going to make that mistake. And chances are they will make some mistakes. But that's what you have to do with delegation, is that you have to help develop this person so they do what you do delegate to them, they do it correctly, and they do it correctly the first time. And that makes a huge, huge difference. I'm going to show you in a little bit how I would handle delegation as far as positions in the store. It can make a world of difference for you in your job. Also, when it comes to that, really, a lot of managers don't delegate because they like to do the work themselves. Well, it's true, but then it's not good to have your other employees sitting around. Or they feel guilty. Oh, I can't give somebody that. I mean, geez, isn't this all my work? And if I give them that, gee, I don't know if I want to do that. They'll think that I'm shirking my responsibilities and giving them all my work. Or the manager won't delegate because they don't want to deal with employee resistance, because some employees just don't want extra work. All they want to do is put somebody in a tanning bed and get back on Facebook. And as we go through this, you'll see that there's a pattern that says we need people to delegate that are people that are good employees, and if they're not good employees, there's no sense in trying to delegate to them, because if you can't change them, then you probably need to change their status with you. You need to have the right people that you can delegate to. Well, and of course, a lot of managers and owners fear surrendering what they feel, surrendering their authority. They feel if they delegate certain tasks that somehow they're giving up their position of authority. And really, it's something I'll say more than once during this webinar. Often, to get control of a salon, you have to give up some control. And sometimes the more of that you can give up through effective delegation, the more you're going to get control over your future, because you've got more people working on it with you. All right, so other things, reasons why they're insecure or they fear about being invisible. I've had owners say to me that if I do too much of this, my employees won't know that I'm really part of the setup anymore. It's like they're afraid that they're going to be relegated to some kind of an outsider. So there's all kinds of fears like this. They lack confidence in their staff. I don't blame them for that if they have the wrong people. They lack the proper training skills. Yes, there are a lot of folks out there you can't delegate to because they're not properly trained. Or they delegate the wrong tasks. For an example, this goes back about 6 months ago, and one of the tasks that the owner delegated to the manager was to get the employees' impressions or their opinions on the base compensation plan for every employee, what they were being paid per hour. Well, that probably wasn't the best thing to do, because that's one of those subjects you get into that is very, very messy. Really, what you ought to do there is do a market survey on what people are paying, or find out what the industry is paying in general for those positions, and maybe talk to a few of your individuals. But I would not delegate to a manager to talk to the group in general about base pay. Now, you could get into some conversation about incentive pay so they understand how the incentive pay system works. But it's very slippery slope to talk about compensation, and I don't think that's something that I would delegate. All right, now they have poor communication skills, and that's true. Sometimes people that are going to do the delegating, they don't really tell the person they're delegating the task to what's really expected of them. They don't really outline what their expectations are. And lastly, there are just, unfortunately, some folks that don't know how to be a manager, and it happens. I think that's one of the things about this industry that both Tony and I are looking forward to. Is what we want to see is this industry become more professional, and we can maybe someday get away from these health baloney things that we're going through. Okay. Next, an effective way to delegate and get more employee involvement. Now, titles and job descriptions, emphasis on revenue streams. Now, what I'm saying here is that so often there's emphasis on other things such as cleaning the salon, and that's important. But I like to get more emphasis on revenue streams. So usually what you see is a manager should have, of course, the overall responsibility for all sales and salon operations. An incentive should be based on revenue growth or maintenance. Now, what I mean by that is that I like to see a manager's incentives based on incremental incomes or incremental growth in certain areas like per tan average or EFT close rate. And that's where sometimes you may have to look at the maintenance of the numbers, because you might be in a market where competition has ramped up, and just to keep the same numbers year after year might be quite the accomplishment with so much more competition. An assistant manager, I like to see them really zoom in on per tan average or PSA if you're Helios, salon maintenance, the cleanliness, and competition. I like to meet them the competition captain. Now you're going to hear the term captain in here several times, and I'm doing this for a reason. Most salons have very few positions that people can be promoted to. And if you were on the webinar back a few weeks ago about motivation, you know that one of the things that people look for is a career path. And you may think that this 19 or 20-year-old that's working for you is not concerned about career pathing, but believe me, they are. They are worried about where am I going to go. Matter of fact, I have a client in Indiana that we're trying to hire a lady who is, I think is going to be an excellent manager, and her concern has been, in talking to us, is where can I go because this is a single salon? What's my career pathing? So don't think that it's not important. Now, you might be looking at someone who's on Facebook every minute that they're in there, and when they're sleeping, the drool hits the counter. Maybe that's not somebody that's too concerned about their career path, but most people are. And if you do create some of these job titles, as I'm talking about, it gives you that opportunity for promotions and some kind of a career path. But so I like my assistant manager to be in charge of those PTA or PSA averages, obviously overall salon maintenance. And that doesn't mean that that's the only person that's doing the maintenance in the salon, but you know, there's the old expression that if everybody is responsible for everything, then no one's responsible for it. Because sometimes what you have to do, people, is you've got to make one person more responsible than another to make sure that they're keeping a focus on what's happening there. And I like to make that assistant manager my competition captain. And here's what I mean by that. If I were to take and talk to 20 salon owners, I would say that probably half of them would have a real good handle on what the competition is doing, but half of them probably not. And if I talk to 20 salon managers, I would say less than a quarter would know what the competition is doing. And so I think it's important to assign to one person on staff that they keep their eyes on the competition, whether it's through Facebook or email or whatever, but they know at all times what that competition is doing. So that's one kind of an extra little job there for the assistant manager to delegate. But how about for a tanning consultant that's really good? Now, again, you can't delegate to somebody that doesn't have their act together. If they're not showing up for work on time, this is not somebody that you want to go to. But how about a tanning consultant that's also a sales captain, say EFT sales close rates? This is a person that takes the numbers off the computer and once a month prepares for the manager and assistant manager and the owner what the EFT close rate was for every individual that month. And by the way, as we move on here, you're going to see that this works perfectly for salon meetings. Just 2 weeks ago, I was up in the Twin Cities, and on a Sunday night, I was at a salon meeting. And there were 4 people that were making presentations during this meeting. And it wasn't just the owner, it wasn't just the manager. And you kind of want that because you get that interactivity going, and then people feel like they're part of the meeting. So when your meeting is coming up, you've got a manager that's, you know, overall responsible. Maybe the manager is running the meeting, but your assistant manager during that meeting is talking about the per 10 averages and talking about the ranking of people and where they stand, but also talking about the competition, because competition could make a big difference what we do with marketing. But then you've got one of the other tanning consultants there that's going to report on the EFT close rates. And it's an interesting thing, by the way, when you do this, when you have a consultant that is delegated to them to also look at those EFT close rates, if their EFT close rate themselves personally is not the best in the world, it puts some subtle pressure on them, because I know that if I were that sales captain for EFT sales, and my close rate looked like it was a little weak, I know that I'd be making sure that I got my rate up, because I'm going to be reporting. I mean, I hate to be that poor dummy that's doing this, and there's 6 employees, and I'm reporting that I'm number 6 and I'm the captain of that area. So it is important who you choose to be these captains. You don't want to give it to somebody that's a rookie. You don't want to give it to somebody that's a poor employee. But it's somebody that's a good employee. It's almost like a promotion to them. And I'm also going to suggest, too, that maybe you throw them a few extra bucks a month. If you're giving them another $50 a month, it's a tank of gas, and particularly if they like being in this position where they have this very focused responsibility that they can report on, it makes them feel good. It gives them a feeling that you're recognizing that they're better than the average employee that's there. I also like a tanning consultant to be a sales captain for lotions. And typically it'd be good to give that to somebody, to delegate that to somebody that is good with lotions. But again, this person's going to come to that meeting with all those lotions figures. And then finally, I like somebody that is a social media captain, somebody that's monitoring your Facebook, that's doing the posts. One of the things that David and I see, because we work with a lot of clients with their social media, their email, and their Facebook, is if you look at the Facebook post, it's kind of revealing why they don't have a lot of likes. Internet Advertising Bureau, IAB, put out some research a couple of years ago that said that on Facebook, what Facebook consumers will accept is the 80-20 rule. They'll accept that 20% of the Facebook posts can be commercial. They'll go along with that. But they want 80% of the posts on there to be more social. After all, it is a social media, and most people don't go on Facebook to get some kind of an offer on a product or service that's out there. So I like to have one of the tanning consultants that is also the social media captain that does the posts to Facebook. Because when I talk to owners and I say, well, do you do posts to Facebook? Yeah, yes, I do. Well, how often do you do them? Well, I do them at least twice a week. Well, on Facebook, the way it is today, you should be doing posts on there every day. And those posts should be more social than they should be business. Now, right now, we're running a promotion with a client down in Nashville with Alex's store down there called Tropicana. And that's where Savannah, the manager, is coming from for our webinar 2 weeks from now. But it's called the Dog Days of Summer, and I think I showed it last webinar, showed the graphics on it. But that's the kind of thing that eventually generates a lot of likes on your website, something that is social. But you need somebody that can focus on that. And when an owner says to me, well, I focus on that, I take care of Facebook, I'm always uncomfortable with that, because owners have so many things to do. They have to wear so many hats. They're talking to the landlord. They're talking to the guy that's redoing some electrical work. They're reordering lamps. I mean, the owners have got so many pieces on their plates. Why not delegate the social media monitoring to somebody that works for them that's a Facebook freak? To me, that makes sense, because I know I'm not a Facebook freak, and David and a few others point out to me all the time that I have to do something different, which of course I don't listen to them. But anyway, just a thing to think about, those job descriptions. So some common salon delegations that you see is that salesmen or salon managers, really what they usually do is they sell, they open, they close, they clean. Same thing with your assistant managers, and there's nothing wrong with this stuff. Same thing with key holders and whatever. But this doesn't really generate an awful lot of emotional involvement as far as like when you get around to meetings. And of course, who pays attention to overall or focused sales and revenue growth? The person that pays attention to it, of course, is the owner. Well, why not get everybody else paying attention to it as well? And that's why I'm suggesting some of those captains. So you're taking advantage of individuals' needs for motivation, such as job or career growth. Even entry-level workers want to avoid a dead end. Recognition. Everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. And when I was at that meeting 2 weeks ago on a Sunday night, the people that made their presentations and then got some positive feedback from the rest of the group, they felt really good about themselves. They felt that they had contributed, and you could see that that recognition really meant something to them. The owner also, and his name is Dan Polanco, he did a really nice job of reinforcing the people there too. Responsibility, authority, the best employees, it's just like Michael Jordan used to say when the game's on the line, I want the ball. Well, the best employees want that. And so if you want to make someone a captain for lotion sales and they don't want the responsibility and authority, then fine, don't force it on them. But your best employees will want that, and they'll go for that. Now let me just stop here just for a second, because there's been a lot of concern or a lot of questions here. Looking at information, anyway, just email me. Okay, good. Okay, we're caught up. Tony is answering some of the questions about the CDC issue. Okay, Self-actualization, there's an internal drive, and the best of us, you want to be the best that you can. And giving people an opportunity to shine, it helps them with their internal drives. Really, it gives them the opportunity to show what they can do as opposed to just cleaning the salon, which is important. But you get them into those meetings, and they're the ones that are delivering the figures. It makes them feel important, makes them feel powerful. Okay, so okay, what are the results of these delegations? Your monthly salon employee meetings produce powerful updates on competition's pricing. You go into a meeting, wouldn't it be great if your captain for a competition is talking about the pricing and the promotions and the in-salon experience? So in other words, when you've got a consultant, a tanning consultant that's also the competition captain, that person should, and of course the owner should provide the money for this, should go tan once or twice a month over at the competition and see the way that they handle a consumer coming in there, the way that they're talked to, or they're talked about their tanning plans, or what kind of lotions they're using, and what the equipment's like when they go in there, and the way that they're addressed when they come out. Does somebody try to sell them or upsell them? And it shows you the quality of their individual employees. You never know, if you're shopping the competition, there might be somebody there you might want to try to steal. And also at these meetings, because you're delegating this stuff out, you're getting these revenue stream captains are providing ranking lists that show the best salesperson. And what that does, of course, is eventually it talks about the progress and everything, but it gives you a list of people that need some time to be, some employees that need to be trained and need to be worked with. And this is something that managers should be doing all the time. You should be looking at numbers and making up lists of those people that need more training. Owners would respect that with a great deal of reinforcement. And those topic captains can ramp up dramatically input of the total meeting participants. They make employees feel more like they're an important part of what's going on in the salon. But delegations like this produce career paths, reduction of the feeling of dead-end work, opportunities to expand leadership potential, all kinds of good stuff. And it makes the tedium of bed cleaning and some salon maintenance more tolerable, because you're giving them something that makes them feel better about themselves. And if we can just get this thing. Okay, cautions and comments about captains. Pick only those delegates with demonstrated competence and follow-through. You pick somebody to be the captain of a category, and it's seen or viewed by some of the other folks as not being the best employee. You're kind of sending a bad message. They don't follow through on it. You get to a meeting and they don't have numbers ready to go. Being promoted to a consultant captain should be considered as a promotion and should be handled as such and valued by that chosen employee. Now, this gives you the opportunity to do more, call it promotions, instead of having just a store manager and a assistant manager, and you could have 3 other captains, one for EFTs, one for lotions, whatever, but that should be considered a promotion, and it should be recognized by everybody else. Those people, if you put them in that job, they could be your bench strength to replace your assistant manager and maybe eventually your manager. That's a big problem in our industry, by the way, is that we have a manager that's doing a decent job and she decides to leave and we're left in the lurch because we don't have any bench strength. And this is a way to answer that question about bench strength, is having these captains of these different categories. Okay, so captains have to do their prep work in between customers. I mean, customers come first. There's no question about that. But a lot of times we have time in the salon where they can work on those numbers and get ready for that meeting and come up with those ranking lists. But they have to be given system authority to draw up the necessary numbers, and it's easy enough to show them how to do that. A successful captain may need some education on reporting the numbers because they've never done it before. They should own the responsibility. If you promote somebody to be the captain of reporting on lotions or EFT clothes, they need to own that responsibility, but they also have to own their normal selling duties. If the numbers are reported to management and salon employee meetings, it'll be up to them to show up and be ready to present. And if you have somebody that won't take that responsibility, you've got yourself a real issue. 2 weeks ago, this meeting that we had on a Sunday night, this lady who was the assistant manager and wants to be the manager. I was watching her very carefully to see how prepared she was for the meeting, and she was very prepared. And that, along with some other issues that we took a look at and questions and interviews that we had with her, she was just officially promoted a couple of days ago because the lady that's the manager is leaving here at the end of October. But she really showed herself to be very responsible during this meeting, and that helped me to make a decision and to advise the owner. So you got to give up some control to get control. There's no question you do. You got to give up some immediate control, but never the final responsibility is you, the delegator, the owner, the manager. You delegate to your employee group those decisions that do not have the potential of catastrophic proportions, such as if you're talking about the color of that should be short, should be shirts or shorts. Excuse me. If you're talking about the color of shirts or shorts, you got to say, well, is this a problem that is such a giant problem that we can't let our employees involved in making this kind of a decision, or give them the ability to wheel and deal with some free tans or upgrades to close the sale. This is the kind of stuff that you want to delegate. You monitor the progress of anyone's delegated task, and you help them if needed to complete the task because you want them to be successful at that delegation. And the goal with any delegated assignment is for the successful completion. And that, of course, reinforces employee self-esteem and confidence. All right. Well, I want to show you this because I showed you this last time, and we're very happy with what's going on. And I'm going to move to some questions here. But among all of the chains that we're dealing with through the end of July, and I don't have reports through August here yet, but the individual TANs are up 2%, EFT sales are up 14%, PTA is up $1.20, which is really good. Lotions up 35%, 35-cent average. PCA is up $15, that's per customer average. Revenue's up 11%, and the highest revenue increase was 41%. He knows who he is. He's on the call listening to this right now. But so far, it's been a pretty good year, and when you consider that first couple of months were nothing to write home about. All right, so I wanted to go through all of this, and let me look at questions here and see what we've got. We have, because usually we run short on it, and I didn't want to run short this time. Let's see here. What do we have for questions? I'm going to get her over here and page back. David, do you see some questions among all the minutia here?
Let me take a look. I know a lot of it was in regards to the, the issue brought up in the very beginning of the webinar with the new regulations there, or the request for letters and comments.
Okay.
Let's see here.
I see a lady here who is Lisa. I won't use your last name, but you say you're interested in the single salon owners, that owner group. So I've got your email here, and when I get around to having this next meeting, which would probably might be as early as late next week, and here's another one that's also interested in it. And the idea on the single salon owners is I'm trying to have 12 or 14 very strong, very active single salons that are involved in it. And what we'll do is we'll report the aggregate results on webinars like this. I obviously will not report anybody's particular results, but that will give a lot of the single salon owners, as well as the smaller companies that have 2 and 3, that it'll give them something to guide their progress as far as their sales and their per tan average and that kind of thing, because I don't think there's enough of that information out there to help whether it's single salon owners or smaller owners to know if they're making progress. Do you see some questions here, David?
Looks like Tony is the man and have been addressing each question and doing a great job at it. Now we did have a question that just came in from Brooklyn.
Okay.
How much pay increase would you give to the captains?
Okay, that's an excellent question, and here's my action to it, or my reaction to it. There are people out there in the workforce, it's hard to believe, but there are people out there in the workforce that really want to have more authority, more responsibility, more involvement in their jobs in the salon. They really want that. Now, the problem is, if you make them a captain and you don't give them something for it, you may come off as adding a job to them, and it may make you look like you're doing something on the cheap. So if you threw them another $50, I mean, if you had 3 captains that were handling your per-tan average, your lotions, your EFT clothes, even if it's 4 captains, and it costs you $200 a month, I would pay $200 a month every day if I could have up-to-date G2 on what my competition is doing, because I can't get around to it. And by the way, what competition is doing also means, Brooklyn, is they should be standing outside of the competition's salon once or twice a month and taking a traffic count of how many people are going in there, so you can kind of compare, get some market share information. But I would do that every day. I would pay that, wouldn't pay that $200 every day, but I would certainly do it. I would agree to doing that because for $200 to have those people show up at the meeting, prepared to show who's doing what. And you know, you got to believe when these captains are doing this and they're putting together their information on EFT close, there's going to be conversation between them and the other employees, because I can see it right now. Somebody that's a captain for the EFT side of your revenues is going to say to somebody else, by the way, when we get to the meeting this Sunday, I just want you to know your EFT close ratio is the lowest, and I want you to be prepared because I don't want you to be embarrassed. Sometimes that bamboo telegraph between employees is a lot more powerful than hearing it from an employer. And maybe they'll do something. Maybe they'll come prepared to say, well, I'd like to have someone work with me and show me how to sell EFTs better. So anyway, I would say if you can get them to do that because they love the responsibility and the authority of it, and give them another $50 as a thank you, I'd say it'd be well worth it. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Yeah, boy, Tony's really been, Tony, your fingers must be wearing out. I have another question here. It says, is it okay for my owner to come to the next webinar, managers only? Yes, absolutely. I want all the owners, please come to the webinar. What we're trying to do, though, is focus on the manager's job and what the manager should do to be successful, not only in the eyes of the owner, but successful in reality. And, of course, we're going to talk about numbers, but we're going to talk about some leadership things, too. And those things, those areas of taking responsibility that maybe they hadn't thought about. I think the biggest thing for managers that we're going to talk about 2 weeks from now is initiative, taking the initiative. What owners will love is to see a manager ahead of the game, ahead of them. Every time I interview a candidate to be a manager at a salon, I'll tell them the same thing, that if you end up being the candidate that's chosen and you want to be successful, then just stay ahead of your owner as much as you can. If you can do that, you'll be highly valued. Try to be at one step ahead of them as far as what's going on as far as the sales and the performance of the individual employees. Okay, so we've got just a few minutes left here. Any other questions? Any other questions on, did anybody try that the dog days of summer, or did you go after something like that from the last webinar? Just kind of curious if you're doing something like that that's highly social to put on your Facebook. Oh, and by the way, the other question I want to ask you too, have you ever tried to recruit employees by putting an ad out on your email? Because that's another way that we've done it too, is you go to all your email recipients and say that you've got some career opportunities. So if you've done that, let me know that as well. Tony, do you have some questions you want to throw in here? I think we lost Tony. David?
That sounds like we lost Tony.
I think we did. Okay. And
he probably passed out after all the questions
all the
being
typing?
answered. Yes.
And by the way, David, it looks like here in the chat box, and you people have been excellent, by the way, at responses on these things. Really appreciate what you're doing. It looks like I don't know how you read it, David, but it looks like the response on the question about replay of the webinars is kind of a mixed bag. Some of them are saying, no problem. Well, Brooklyn was saying 30 days would be okay to listen to the webinar later on. Other people are saying no, that would irritate other people. So I'm not sure that we have a clear mandate from this which way we should go. But again, what I would say to everybody, if you want to comment on this, is that what our concern has been is that we had over 200 people sign up for the webinar last time, and we had less than half of those actually show up for the webinar. Now, I will say this, on my website and Sun is Life website, we're getting a lot of webinar replay. So, I guess that's good. But, and I guess the question I would ask, too, are we doing this at the wrong day of the week? As Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern, is it the wrong day and time of the week? I don't know. Have we asked this before, David? Did we ask them their opinion if there's a better time or better day?
Not that I can recall. That's always been. We originally started Wednesday, and then we switched it to Thursdays.
Okay, so let me ask that question, and then we're going to have to get on with shutting down the webinar here. But I'd like to ask people out there how you feel about we've had, good Lord, what have we had? 12, 14 webinars that have been at 3 o'clock on a Thursday, 3 o'clock Eastern time. Can you guys give us some feedback, what you feel would be best days and times for doing these webinars? Because we're already, by the way, putting together a schedule for 2014, and that's one of the questions we're going to be asking you on the next webinar, is what kind of subjects you'd like to see us cover next year. But if you can give me some feedback now in the chat box of what you think would be if you think there's a better day or time than Thursday at 3 o'clock, I would really appreciate that feedback. And then if you've got the winning Powerball numbers, I'd sure like to have that too. Just a thought.
So we do have Tony is with us, actually. He had an audio issue. So he is with us. He can only hear us, though. But he did want to point out that anyone that wants a sample letter for the CDC, and I think that was what I was trying to say earlier, his email address, they can just email him at tony@sunislife.com. That's Tony, Tony, at sunislife.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, Troy is saying that the time of Thursdays at 3 o'clock works for him, but he unfortunately doesn't have the winning numbers for the lottery. So, Troy, I'm very disappointed in you. What can I tell you? Actually, here's Wednesdays would be better. I think what we're going to have to do, and I'll get together with my partner in crime, Mr. Tony, and ask him. We'll see if we can't put together some kind of a survey for all you folks to tell us what would be the best day and time to have these webinars. I don't know that we'll change them this year, but we may change them for 2014. So, well, David, do you see anything else? There's an awful lot of chat here, but it was a lot of it was about the CDC thing, and many comments about the days of the week. Some are saying Tuesdays. Kevin's saying Tuesday at 12 o'clock Pacific time. So I don't see anything else that we haven't answered here. But so anyway, I want to thank you all for being on the webinar today. And if you, of course, need some help with increasing your profits and your revenues with your stores, please let us know. We're going into a busy time of the year now. I can see that. So if you need some help, get to us quickly. And David, who's been on the call here, is our tech wizard. So if you need help with email or website development, those kinds of things. And Tony is our, of course, is our host for The Sun is Life. And if you haven't tried the Sun is Life program yet, you absolutely should. It is the most comprehensive. Here's one question that came in. I'll answer this before we sign off. Troy wants to know tanners per day. Tanners, and I'm not laughing at you, Troy. It's what I'm laughing at is your questions, tanners per day, what is a good number? Well, there's numbers all over the board. It would depend on the time of the year, the time, what day during the week. It would depend on how big your salon is, what the market size is. Alex, if you're on this call, my client and partner in crime down in Nashville, who we're stealing his manager for the next webinar, Alex, I don't have your numbers up in front. Are you comfortable with sharing this time of the year? Troy has 8 beds, and Alex, I think you have 15, if I remember correctly. If you're comfortable, Alex, in sharing how many tans per day, if you want to put that back in the chat box. I would say this time of the year with 8 beds, Troy, I don't know, probably 50, maybe 60 tans. But again, it depends a lot on your market. So if you're in a major metro market with a lot more houses and bodies around you, it could be different. Alex may or may not be on. I don't see a message. And Troy says that's what he's hitting. Okay, good. All right, well, people, thank you very much. I want to see you 2 weeks from today. And again, managers only, as they say, but it is definitely open for owners, but we're going to really go after the manager's point of view. Tony, I thank you wherever you are out there in space. Okay, and Alex, by the way, just responded, Troy, for your tanners per day. He said he's tanning about 50 a day. It's hot out there. I think he probably would like to say a comparison of how hot it is out there, but he's trying not to use foul language. So, and Nashville does get a little warm this time of the year. So, well, anyway, people, thank you very much for attendance, and I hope to see you all 2 weeks from today.
And folks, please don't forget that we actually have a follow-up survey that should be popping up immediately after the webinar, so please definitely fill that out. We really value your feedback. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.